This is a no surf music, Burning River Fireside Chat. With guest, Holly Golightly and the Brokeoffs. I'm your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond. For the best in Americana, alt country, indie rock, and more, point your browser to nosurfmusic.com. So this is another edition of No Surf Music's Burning River Fireside Chats, and this is your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond. And joining me today are Holly Golightly and Lawyer Dave, and together they are Holly Golightly and the Brokeoffs. How are you guys doing today?
Well,
You're a little sick.
I got a cold.
Okay.
I'm doing much better.
Okay.
He's going to do most of the talking.
Oh, you don't want that.
No, well, you'll get kicked.
Whatever works. Whatever works. So we are at the Beachland Ballroom tonight, where you guys will be playing a show in the tavern in support of your new record, which is It's Her Fault.
All her fault.
All her fault, excuse me.
Everybody keeps saying it's her fault.
Something got screwy in the press release.
Yeah.
That is probably why.
Yeah.
Because that's what it said on the version that they sent me.
See, someone needs to get fired over that, don't
No,
Publicists are nice people. They don't need to get
it's
fired.
only music.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter.
So I will change that in my iTunes because I only got a digital copy. I didn't
Right.
get a real one, so I didn't get to look. But all her faults. And that came out in March, correct?
Yeah, the end of March, I think.
Okay. And we haven't actually gotten the opportunity to review it on our site yet, but we will be in conjunction with this little interview we're doing. But I do have to say it is an awesome album, in my opinion. No problem. I've actually been a fan of yours for quite a while. And for people who don't know anything about your musical career, you're kind of, to me, the Thoreau of Americana. Simplify, simplify, simplify. I mean, it's just the two of you. Your music is all very straightforward. And you were kind of doing the whole lo-fi thing way before it was even cool.
Well, I didn't have a choice. I could only afford shitty gear.
Right. Well, is that sort of how that started? Is it you just want to do everything on your own? And
No, I think probably I got given a 4-track in payment for something. Somebody owed me some money, and I got given a 4-track in payment for something, and I never read the instructions. I just went ahead and started using it, and it went on from there. But I mean, the band I was in before. I mean, we used gear that we'd got. It was kind of older gear from the flea market, and it's a happy accident. It wasn't, it wasn't like a contrived design to do anything a specific way. It's just that's the gear we had. So.
And you sort of started off in the garage band, garage rock kind of milieu, right?
Well, I suppose. We never really fitted. I mean, everybody's got to call something, but we never really fitted in that. We did a load of other stuff besides the band, that as it was, the 7-piece band. But we did a load of stuff at home, which was more kind of shanty, a lot of homemade stuff with just 2 or 3 people.
Okay.
In the basement. I mean, it wasn't, when you say garage, I mean, I have this horrible, I think what it means to some people is not what it means to others,
Okay.
And
so you were more of
there
a
isn't
basement
any-
tapes band than a garage
There's no
band.
rock element to it.
Right.
None whatsoever. In fact, it's the opposite of that, really. Garage bands, I mean, in 1964 in Texas, were playing in their garage with shitty gear, and they really wanted to sound like the Beatles, but they couldn't, because that's all they had. They weren't trying to sound like shit, which is the contrived element that has snuck in.
Gotcha.
They were trying to be as good as they could be,
On their budget.
and it was shit. but not because that's what they were aiming for. That's just what happened.
Gotcha.
So what garage means to some people, like I say, means something totally different. To me, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't describe a type of music
Right.
at all.
Well, I think for a lot of people, it really is sort of deriving from that. I mean, it's just the lo-fi, very simple equipment kind of a feeling. But you
Yeah, but then you get bands doing it, and bands that are called garage bands are actually rock bands.
Right.
You know, it's not the same thing
Right.
at all.
Well, everybody sort of wants to fit in the place they're going to make the most money. So if they make more money calling
Well, they're in
themselves
the
a
wrong
garage
business
band,
if they're after making money. They're starting out totally wrong. But yeah, if
well, they won't last very long.
if you want to make money, you should get a proper job.
Become an accountant.
You
You'll
know.
always have a job.
Indeed, at least 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time you get to
Right.
relax a little bit,
Uh-huh.
right?
It's just like us.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but I mean, in addition to the sort of musical simplicity, you guys also seem to have sort of a personal simplicity. You live on a farm in a rural area, and you do hold down full-time jobs.
I do.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
Dave does fuck all.
Well, you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yes, you do support yourself outside of music as well.
Oh, absolutely. I always have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I live so simply I don't need to, because I make enough on what I do with music, at least for the last 5 years, that I don't actually... I should have a job. I would have a lot more money if I did, but I don't actually need it so far.
We've set ourselves up so that we
don't pay rent.
We've set ourselves up so that we need as little money as possible to get along. That's kind of the ethos is that you don't all move to LA to be in a band
So you can work 50 hours and not get good
and
at
not
what
get
you
good
do.
at what you do, you know.
Right.
So it's living simply sort of goes hand in hand with living cheaply and making things as straightforward as you can in terms of your outgoings. You know, that you make your outgoings as low as possible and in turn get as good as possible at the thing you'd like to spend your time doing. But if you move to a city to do that, you don't get to do that. You know, it's very hard to do it unless you're super privileged and you don't have to work 3 jobs to pay your rent.
Yeah.
So
Must be
actually,
nice having a trust fund, right?
well,
Right.
it's more of a I mean, I guess it's more of a sort of manifesto for living. Really, it's just keep it simple and cheap.
I gotcha.
And then you get to do as you please, which is exactly what we do. I have a full-time job because I want one. I don't have a full-time job because I need one. I need extra money to do other stuff, you know, besides...
She has a really bad animal habit.
I have a bad horse habit.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Hungry animal.
And they've got to eat.
It is good, because otherwise they don't do too well.
Music, you can't rely on the money you make from playing music. And over the years, I've been paid nicely for doing certain things, but you can't... It's unreliable income. It's not... You can't bank on it. So I've always had a full-time job as well as played music.
I gotcha.
I like the normalcy of it. I like the structure of it.
Okay.
It makes you sort of a whole person. You're not only doing, if you sit in your bedroom playing guitar, wistfully writing
boring,
songs,
isn't it?
I mean, it makes you a very boring person. Really. It's very, it's sort of very self-absorbed.
Right.
Not, you know.
Well, you don't have much to write about in your songs if all you're doing is
But so many
playing your
people
songs,
do
right?
that. I mean, so many people think that's the way forward, you know. And it makes it a really... you can quite often tell when you watch people play or hear their songs, you can quite often tell where they're coming from with them. And sometimes they're coming from a very different place than I am, you know.
I gotcha. Well, speaking of coming from a different place, obviously folks can tell from your accents that you're not originally from the States. And you grew up in a fairly rural setting in England as
Pretty
well,
much
didn't you?
where I live now is I look out the window and it's the same thing. I mean, so yeah.
Bigger bugs, though.
Bigger bugs. That's the only thing, and a lot better weather. But yeah, I was born in London and I grew up with my grandparents out in London. So,
Okay.
So on a small holding, so it was all about the animals and the gardening.
I got you. So that's sort of, I guess, where you developed the ethos that you were talking about, and also as...
There's nothing more punk rock and just growing your own food.
Okay.
Is the truth.
It's really hard to find another way to stick it to the man that's any better
Better to
than
not
that.
need it.
Than
Yeah.
to not need the man.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's
when
kind
you're
of
completely
where
independent.
that's where we've put ourselves.
Are you guys off the grid as far as electricity
No,
goes and all
fuck
that
no.
yet? Or
No, we have well water. We don't have like city water.
Okay.
But, no, we don't have a generator yet, but we have one on the way, and we also need a hand pump for the well to power because the power does actually go down. We're kind of at the end of the line
Gotcha.
for the phone and the
Yeah, I
power.
wouldn't say our goal is to be off the grid and
No.
drop out completely. I mean, we're in the wrong place for that anyway.
Yeah,
but,
it's way too populated where we are, even though it's rural,
Gotcha.
But no, that's not the goal. Is to really just do as you please.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the goal.
Okay.
And it's nice to have electricity, isn't
I like it. It's good for recording.
it? Yes, exactly.
It probably helps for that. That's for sure.
Air conditioning ain't so bad, when it's needed.
Yeah.
So you actually did record this album at your place, which is it's pretty much the first time you've done that in a while, isn't it?
The
couple?
last two have been
Well,
done
we-
sort of between home.
We mix there.
We mix there always,
Oh,
but
okay.
they built a studio like a year after we moved in, I guess, like in the first couple of years. So we have a space for recording, and the first thing we really did there was Madison County, but we'd also rented a church that was empty up the road. There's a lot of them, and so
we rented it by mowing it the lawn.
Yeah, I mean, when I say rented it, like we got the use of it
Gotcha.
through a friend of a
We did
friend
some
with the
chores.
key. Yeah,
Made a couple pies, whatever works. Right?
well, they don't use it. I mean, it's just a building that needs maintaining. So, and
But
they
good
had,
acoustics,
Well,
right?
they had an
Yeah,
organ.
really good.
They had an organ in
Yeah.
there which we got to use.
Nice.
So, and that's just around the corner from us. So. And that was the first one we really did. We sort of did that between there and home, and the next one we did at home and rented in some gear. And again, we did the same thing this time. We have the loan of some pretty good gear, but we're always finding stuff
I
in
gotcha.
people's barns. There's actually the town that's next to us, the town sort of that isn't really a town, but it's like a street with a couple of stores on it. There's a building there. It used to be a recording studio in the 50s and 60s, just out in the middle of nowhere. It's this 3-story building that has the most amazing layout because they had a live room, and we haven't used a photographer bought the building. She's from Atlanta, and I think she's kind of gutted out the bit that was interesting about the building was that it was acoustically really special, and,
Gotcha.
and they'd had a live room on the middle floor and the control room on the top floor with a weird dumbwaiter thing going on.
Okay.
It was kind of weird setup. I saw the building before she bought it, and started ripping it all to pieces. But a lot of people had recorded there through the 50s and 60s, apparently. So I hear. So there's gear knocking around locally.
Gotcha.
There's lots of people who had that kind of arrangement going on, and they were just recording. I guess they were just recording country bands or whoever came through town. And the one that I'm talking about, I know James Brown recorded there at some point.
Very cool.
So-
Very cool.
Well, we're in Georgia. It's very cool.
Well, that's true too. So, I guess, given that you are working and you've got chores on the farm and all that going on, how did you arrange it so that you could separate the different parts of your life when you're recording at home? Because it's not, most people, they go to the studio, they have 3 days, they got to do this, they got to do that. But you guys, I mean, you took like 6 months to do this record, right?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah,
like
but
that.
not consistently 6 months. I mean,
Well, that's
the
kind of what I'm
thing.
asking about.
Yeah.
I guess is how did you sort of plan it out so that it would happen in the way that it ended up happening?
Well, we were hit by really bad weather during the time we were recording, and we had to take we were flooded out. There was really bad. The house almost got hit by lightning. The power had to be checked. We had to have an electrician come and check all the wiring out because it got fried, and
Wow.
so there was a lot. There were hold-ups. When I say it was 6 months, it was like from beginning to end, it was 6 months. But in actual fact, and Dave plays everything. He's a one-man band, so he plays everything, and when it comes to recording, that is more time consuming than it would be if you had a 3-piece or 4-piece band anyway. I mean, that takes longer to do, and since he's home, he got to do it in his own time, which is really fucking slow.
Yeah. Well, when it's, you know.
And I was going to work, and I would come in the evenings and do some singing. So that's why it was drug out a really long time. We had weather issues, and
Well, that and there wasn't a really set deadline, and that
No,
always
we
makes
didn't-
it really
that-
hard.
well-
Because then you kind of.
yes, that's the guy who could never meet a dead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, our second record we recorded in Spain in a Jorge, I don't remember his last name. Munzo.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, like all vintage gear studio. But we only had we were there 5 days, and we went out and did some shows and came back for a
2 weeks.
The last, was it 2 weeks?
It was 2 weeks we had in
Oh,
total.
okay.
Yeah.
And that was that one was pretty sketch because we only had about half of it written before we got in there, and so we had to make up the
And
rest.
we were on tour.
Right.
So, yeah, we had to rush to do that one. But it's not. I don't think you can spot the joins whether you spend 6 months doing something
Yeah,
or
it's
2
kinda
weeks
true.
doing something. It's not. With the kind of thing we do,
It doesn't matter that much.
it's not. We're not so precious about it. And we don't really struggle to write songs. I mean, we're kind of good at stringing words together. And it was more just having the time to do it, you know, when we were touring.
Gotcha.
So this one isn't the first one we've done at home, but it's the first one that we have exclusively done at home.
Gotcha.
I guess.
Okay. So then, I suppose if you don't really think that it affects the process too much, as far as how long you take and all of that, I guess the question for me is, like, you say you can't hear it, but in creating it, is it harder because you have to keep putting it off and then going back to it and putting it off and going back to it, or is it actually easier because you get a chance to think about it and to sort of...
That's an interesting question. I'm all for getting things done really fast. I like instant gratification, and I like things turned over really fast so you can get on with the next thing. That's how I've always worked.
Mm-hmm.
Dave is the polar opposite of that. He'll scrutinise things to infinity and procrastinate.
It depends on what it is.
And,
some songs come really easy, and those are always the best ones, I think. But
I think there's such a thing as over-egging the pudding.
Well, there is.
You just go back to things over and over again, and they get really tired, really.
yeah, and you end up throwing
because-
those ones out usually anyways. But what I was going to say is, there's the thing that you hear in your head, and then you try to make it line up with what actually comes out, and they're very rarely the same thing. So I like to take my time to get it, if not as close to that thing that I had in my head, or as to something even better, or on the same parallel as far as it feels. But that, for me, because I'm one guy, I have to learn how to do the thing a lot of times all over again. So if I'm playing one drum part, I'm not really the best drummer, but I have to try to be. And so I'll do that and get that as good as it can be. That can take some time. Whereas you get to...
I'm a one-take wonder.
Well, you get to sing,
Yeah.
and boom, done.
I
So it's
can't.
easy.
It's just not my way of working. My way of working is to just quick sticks.
I've got you. I've got you.
Probably the first take that you do of something, if you're familiar with the song, and this is not every time, but it's certainly not. There are exceptions, but 9 times out of 10, the first take vocal take that you have is probably going to be as good as it's going to get. If you go, I've worked with people who go and drop in syllables, and it's agony. It's agony, and it's agony for them, and it's agony for the engineer, and it's agony for the piece of tape that gets worn out, and it's like there isn't anything to be gained from. It's a moment in time. That's all a recording is. It's
Gotcha.
not like you can make it as good as you can make it. But once you're familiar with the song, you're never really familiar with a song until you've played it on tour for a couple of years. That's when you really know a song. you know, and it's not going to be like that when you're recording it because it's a new song.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So quite often the first take of something, maybe not the first take, but you know, sing it through a couple of times, and that's probably going to be as good for that moment in time.
Yeah, for the amount of time you have to get it
is going to
done.
be as good as it
Right.
gets, you know. And
I mean,
once
otherwise-
you know the song, you can adjust your scanning, and you can do all this stuff that will give the song more character over the course of time. But you can't do that when it's a
You
new
don't
song.
have enough time.
Right.
usually
You just
to
don't
do
have the
that.
time
Like,
to do it,
Sing it in
you
the
know.
shower for weeks and weeks until you get.
Yeah. Oh,
Gotcha.
playing songs live is how you get good at songs. That's
Right.
the fact of the matter. you
So
know.
do you guys ever then take new material out on the road just so you can sort of test
never.
drive it,
No.
or do you know? Okay.
No.
We're
it's-
not that band. We don't.
And there's loads and
Yeah.
loads of stuff I've recorded that I've never played live,
Mm.
and so those songs are sort of stuck in time. They're where they were on that day I recorded them.
Gotcha.
And if I'd done them for years as
They'd be
part of a
different.
set, they'd be totally different songs by now. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha,
They'd be the
absolutely,
same
yeah.
songs, obviously, but they would have matured somehow.
Sort of evolved into
Uh-huh.
something new.
Where they're fluid.
Gotcha.
And not new songs. When you record things, and I do notice this on a lot of people's stuff, when people record things, I guess they spend a lot of time procrastinating about how much better it could be in the given amount of time they've got. And they shouldn't. They should just move on to the next thing. Maybe go back to it before they're completely done with it, but not pin too much importance on that delivery. You know, do it as best you can for the amount, for the familiarity that you have with that song, and then move on.
I gotcha.
And go back to it, because after a bit of repeated listening, you'll hear it differently and you'll sing it differently. You know.
Well, I think to me at least, that's one of the unique elements that makes your music stand out. It's not just that it's simple in its form, or that it's sort of rootsy and goes back to older feeling music, but also that it does feel kind of spontaneous, kind of like this is what we did.
This is this
Yeah.
moment in time.
Right. You don't like really want to sand off all the edges.
No.
I think for what we do, I mean, that's certainly got its place with certain types of music, but in what we do, I mean, when you think about the sort of essence of the thing, it really was a case of sitting around the piano and singing with your family. It wasn't, you didn't have to be the best at it. It's the fact that you were participating was actually much more
Just
important.
like at church or something.
Yeah, you were just, that you're giving something of yourself in that delivery at that moment, And I think that for what we do, that's the perfect approach, really. I think when you hear people who do something similar to what we do, and I don't actually know that anybody does really. I don't know that anybody is that slapdash, in a way. But
Are allowed to be.
or not even allowed to be. Perhaps they're striving for something much more polished, But I think you can kind of hear when people have spent too long doing something, and it wasn't a spontaneous delivery.
Gotcha.
That's when vocal acrobatics come into play.
Well,
and
yeah.
things
Right,
like that.
right.
It's where you've really learned the song, and at that point it becomes karaoke. It's not like it's not like a sort of get up and sing it kind of delivery.
Because I think when I listen to it, anything that you guys have recorded, it feels to me like you're still tapping into the original emotions of when you wrote it. Whereas most people, like you say,
Move on.
Yeah, well, and it's been 6 months since they wrote it. They learned the line exactly, but then they go in and they do those adds and drops and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're basically making something that is as fine as it can be, but has none of the actual spirit of what you wanted in it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a shame. I think because you hear really, really good songs and really good singers singing them, but there's something really. It's kind of all been. It's all disinfected in a way.
Well, it's pretty simple, really. I think, and you don't have to be a musician to appreciate it. That's why like a lot of people like those scratchy old 78s. Sounds like shit. They can barely even hear like the guitar lines, or the singing just sounds like crap. But you can tell that behind it all, there's some real soul or something. I don't even think there's a word for what it is, but it will come through. And whether it's hi-fi or lo-fi, if it don't have that, it's probably, and it's different for everyone. Some people get off on certain things. If you don't hear that personally, then it's probably not for you. And if you, and I think people do destroy whatever that is by trying too hard, and you know.
But then there's the other end of the spectrum where people don't really try very hard at all.
Exactly.
And that's unlistenable also,
Right.
but in a different way,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's striking a happy medium with making it kind of as tuneful as you can make it in the moment, you know.
I gotcha.
We try.
Right. Well.
You know, we work on harmonies, but we don't work on harmonies for 6 months. We
Right.
don't work
That
on,
afternoon.
We work on harmonies for that while we're listening to that song. and
Gotcha.
then,
So
you
it's
know.
like, okay, you're gonna sing this note, just sing it.
Yeah. And
Pretty much,
if you can't
yeah.
get it, it's like, well, go listen to it in the car for a couple days.
Yeah,
and
if
come
you
back
can't
and-
get it right this time, then just listen to
And,
the song a
and
bit.
sometimes I ain't doing that one because I hate it. Okay, throw that one away. So that's happened. We got a lot of songs like that. We should
Yeah.
do a record of songs we hate.
Songs that we've written
That
that
we-
we didn't do.
Yeah, we should do that. So-
Or we couldn't sing.
Or yeah.
Right.
Or we couldn't sing the way we wanted to sing.
Right. Well, maybe if you go back the second time, you'll have some new ideas, and you'll figure out a way to do it this
But you
time,
know,
right?
I've done that before, like, because when we start doing a record, I usually just kind of, I have my setup in the studio with all my silly toys, and I just hit record and go, and they're really crappy, just, you know, idea, like sketches or something, and she listens to some and decides what she likes and doesn't like. But of course I have this whole library of stuff I never did anything with, like from the last records, and every time I go over, I'm gonna use one of those ones, and I listen to them to remember why I didn't do it, and they're like, no, let's start all over.
I have
Remember why you
plastic
hate them.
bags full of cassette tapes
Yeah.
from my 4-track. You know, there's hundreds and hundreds of demo style tracks.
And they're all
you
crap,
know.
right?
Well, I don't know. I'll never get to hear them again, will I?
Until you
Because
get
they've
a 4-track.
Because I get because my 4-track's broke. But they'll probably be really good in 20 years' time when I actually find a way of playing them again.
Right.
You know?
Well, it'll be the sort
We
of
go
thing
to enough flea markets, and eventually you'll have to find a 4-track somewhere.
It'll be the sort of thing like
Well, also, and they might have been recorded on very speed, so you got
Right.
like this. You'll hear them, and it'll be, I don't remember doing that at all, or what I did.
or somebody will,
you know.
will find them and release them after you die, and it's all the shit you hated.
Yeah, yeah, that's.
But you're dead, so who cares, right?
But that happens a lot, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
no.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason they were unreleased.
Yeah.
But
So I do want to talk a little bit about some specifics on the new album, but just before we do that, one sort of last general question, which is kind of, we were talking earlier about the garage band thing and how labels are sometimes not the best thing, and I totally agree with that. Unfortunately, being somebody who writes about music, the only way you can do that is sometimes to label it, so at least
Right.
people will know, you know. But your stuff, in a lot of ways, kind of defies any genre. But what really strikes me about it is the roots Americana aspect of it. Whatever else you're doing, there's always that feeling that you're going back to probably some guy who lived at your farm 100 years ago and was sitting on the porch and playing a guitar,
Probably.
and
Yeah.
all that. So we're, especially since you grew up in a different country, thousands of miles from
It's kind
that.
of an interesting. It's an interesting historical question, because most British people, well, certainly people my age and younger people, grow up knowing Motown and Stax. We embraced that in a way that America never did, ever, and still hasn't acknowledged that it's the best thing that ever happened in America. And so you'll have toddlers now, like 5-year-olds, who've been in the car with their mum with the radio on, and they'll know all the words to "Heard It Through the Grapevine," or they'll know. There's no reason why they should, but
Gotcha.
just that it gets airplay, you know. And so when I first got interested in music, I was interested in punk rock, and I was listening to John Peel a lot, late night, and recording it, you know. And I'd be listening to all this punk rock stuff, and then when I got old enough, I'd go and see these punk bands, and quite often they'd be doing, they'd be like the Damned doing Hippie Hippie Shake or something like that. And then I'd buy the record and realise that they didn't write the song, and then I'd find out what the original was, and it'd be some like 1962 R&B hit,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which would be then a rip-off of some church music, you know. So that's how I got interested in the stuff I'm interested in. It was really like retrograde, you know. It wasn't because there wasn't the internet. It's not like you could say I'm interested in, you know, 60s soul or I'm interested in 50s R&B. You just went to record stores and you listened to shitloads of music and you found the thing that you really liked. And I found it completely by accident by going to see the Buzzcocks and going to see the Damned, and, who were doing 60s beat group versions of 50s R&B hits, like Shell, like, you know, that stuff. So yeah, it's not that unusual, and I think it's much more. I think it's more. It's something that's like fundamental for British people is American black music. It's not. White Americans don't have that at all.
Okay.
You know, and
It's not wholesale like it is in...
not like it is back home. And so I got into collecting 45s, like soul 45s.
Okay.
Really, like when I was in my early 20s, I was already like raking around thrift stores for 50s and 60s R&B tracks.
Very nice.
So, and then got into a scene that is a huge record collecting scene, and I was really into dancing as well. So I got big into Northern Soul, which is popularised in the north of England. That's why it's called Northern Soul, but it's all Philly Soul, it's all Stax, it's all Motown. It's all the small label stuff that was pillaged, you know, because these factories, these pressing plants were closing down and British DJs were coming over and just buying all the white labels. Nobody really knew what they were.
Yeah.
But they were popularised in dance clubs, and I got into that scene in a big way. So when you talk about it being like a guy sitting on my porch 100 years ago, there's a lot of truth to that, actually. But it's not by accident, you know. It's something he would never have known about. You would never have known about, because it wasn't the avenue you went down. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's not what you were exposed to growing up. It's like my formative years were spent listening to Stax and Motown. So
Gotcha.
and John Peel. So like a combination of all of this, you know, made for a very healthy scene in the UK, which doesn't and has never really existed here, you know.
Gotcha, absolutely. So what about you, Dave, on your side? You know, what elements do you feel you bring in to the music that sort of complements her
Metal. I don't know. I just do what I do. I just like playing. And things with
You
strings.
must like
mostly.
some music, Dave. You must be able to say
I
something.
like all music, but I can't really say. I mean, like...
Dave's kind of a muso.
Well, yeah, I've played pretty much my whole life. Just not because I have a particularly musical family. It's just I've always been that kind of guy that noodles a lot. You know, and I don't know. I just like playing, and I listen to, you know, grew up listening to what, you know, like everybody, what their parents listen to. And my mom liked a lot of the country and crooners and that kind of thing. And then when I got older, just did, you know, skate punk, metal, all the normal American kid stuff. So, but as I got older, I just kind of, you know, it's the same thing. You just get more and more simple with it, and realize that
You find the source, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You find the
Yeah,
thing in
eventually.
it that
And you realize
that
how
really
cool-
does touch you somehow.
yeah, and then you know, and eventually every kid that's ever liked Led Zeppelin wants to know what Jimmy Page was into, and they listen to that stuff, and you realize, oh, he's totally ripping that shit off.
Mm-hmm.
And then and that's when you really get into like the really old scratchy shit. By the time you make it that far, if you're still interested in it, it doesn't have that punch you in the face kind of power, but it's got something even bigger, and it's much simpler.
Way more powerful.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's
In essence, you know.
yeah, and then when you're young, I mean, that's what's, you know, you want it loud and fast, and
Well, boys maybe. do.
boys do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the musicians do. Everybody that's ever wanted to play something wants to be the fastest and loudest first before they want to learn how to crawl. And that's why everyone quits, because they don't allow themselves to suck. And but if you can make it through all that, you just get into, and you realize that the stuff that your grandma was singing to you when you were a baby is just as valid, or if not more so, than anything you've ever heard on a CD. Because it's, recorded music. It's one of the weird anomalies in history where, like 100 years ago, no one thought, oh well, I'll get rich, or I'll make a living playing folk music, because it wasn't a thing. That's what you did if you were crippled, if you were blind and you couldn't have a regular job and you had to support yourself. You went on the street and did the thing you could do for spare change, and it was a crap life. And then all of a sudden recording comes out and someone realized you could sell records, and
once it
some
became
people
a commodity.
And so now it's kind of disappointing, because now at this point it's like there's this myth that you go and see people that can do it, but the fact is that everybody can do it, and everybody probably should do it. I mean, not everybody's inclined to do it.
Well, I mean, aside from the people who weren't able to do anything else, there was that, there's a very, very long tradition of families sitting around singing songs together.
Because there was nothing else.
Because there was nothing else to do, and
your
to stop
life-
themselves from going nuts.
Yeah, life was very hard, and that was the only relief you had was that, or getting drunk as
Yeah,
fuck and-
I mean, your
Or both,
avenues.
why not?
you
Yeah,
know,
but your
because-
avenues were fairly limited.
Right.
It's not like you had all this other
The
leisure
iPhones
aspect.
and the TV
no,
and
there
all
was
that.
no leisure
that's why
aspect.
we
When
always
you
say
finished
that,
work, that's what you did.
And the future is rubbish. It's crap, but because of all these
Because of all this
distractions.
stuff.
No, everybody
yeah.
we were driving through America. It's difficult, but you realize everything is the exact same over all these thousands and thousands of miles.
Right.
And a lot of it has, and music is kind of packaged in the same way. It's kind of disappointing, because you realize, like with all the stuff, the comforts and relative ease of life nowadays, people are fucking miserable. Like, probably more so now than they were when they had
Ever.
real stuff to worry
Yeah.
about, like polio.
Yeah.
Or am I going to
Or
have enough to
ploughing
eat?
all day.
Or am I gonna,
Right.
yeah.
In the
Right.
pissing rain.
And now they got to make up stuff to be miserable about. Now everybody's
Restless leg.
Yeah.
They've all got fucking
got a
restless leg
drug
and
for
skin
everything.
tags.
And to be fair, I have that. It's annoying. No. Well, no, I
Well,
think.
no, but people are sort of making up problems.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're just
When
thinking.
It's,
And that was one of the reliefs back in those days was, shut up, here Sunday's coming, we get to scream our head off in church and sing and
Right.
be
sling
sort
some
of happy
snakes
for that.
around.
Yeah.
Do something
We'll
exciting.
be happy for that.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether you were black or white. Everybody did the same thing, like, at least in the South. And, of
For
course,
sure, yeah.
white churches tend to be a little bit less
It's dull.
enthusiastic.
It's pretty dull.
Well, some of them
Well,
are
except
fine,
in
but-
West Virginia, where
Exactly.
they do have the
Or
snakes.
Georgia.
They do
Yeah.
at least have the snakes
Yeah.
and some amazing music. Yeah.
But still, it was like music was a thing that everybody did, or at least thought they could do. Were allowed to do. Even if
Yeah,
you
there
weren't
wasn't.
good-
It's not like you're not very good at it, so don't do
So
it.
shut up.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a lot
there
less
wasn't any of that.
judgmentalism when
Uh-huh.
everybody was doing it,
and
right?
that's the thing, like, whether you're religious or not, that's the cool thing about church is you can participate in the music, and theoretically, I mean, people won't say that you suck.
We have a cowboy friend who plays fiddle
Yeah,
badly, and he plays in
But
church.
he loves to do it.
loves to do it. It's his favourite thing. Come
Gotcha.
Sunday morning,
He goes to church.
he goes to church just to play his fiddle.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he's not a churchy person by any stretch, but that's his
That's his
thing.
relief.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, it's a good audience, I
And
suppose.
so that way, I was thinking, like, of course, we'd be out of a job,
Oh yeah.
but at the same time, I think people, there's way too much pretension when it comes
It's
to
funny
music.
actually. Last night, the show we played in Cincinnati last night. Just thinking about it, a few people said afterwards that was like going to church. That was the closest
good
thing to
crowd
going
though,
to a
isn't it?
really good church.
Cool.
But, yeah, which is
a good
coming
experience,
from
then.
these hipster kids.
Right,
It's
right,
like
right.
they just said there's no sort of. It wasn't like guided by fashion or anything.
No.
It's just like a really fun time that's totally inclusive. Everybody is included in it. And a few people said that to me, which I think is a real. I think that's proper praise. That's real accolade to be. To say you brought something to town that everybody was dancing their asses off and drunk as you like.
That
I mean,
crowd,
that crowd particularly.
It's not the same everywhere.
They're not the same everywhere, but
Yes.
but those people really, really were into it because there wasn't any. There's no clique with us being on the stage and them being down there. There's no difference between us and them, and I think they really do recognise that.
Gotcha.
Like we
Yeah.
make mistakes and start again, and we do. It's not a slick operation by any stretch, but I think that makes it really accessible to people who might not think about dancing and singing a lot. People who just sang along to all the songs, whether they'd heard them before or not.
Okay.
Like once you've heard them, But I thought that was really nice. I think that's quite a nice analogy, saying that it's like, you do something that makes people feel included.
Gotcha.
Like that.
Yeah.
Which I think is really great.
Well, I find that particularly interesting because, listening to All Her Fault is what we decided it was called,
All
correct?
my fault, yeah.
Yeah, it's all somebody's fault, right?
It's mine, always.
But right in the middle of it, it seems to me that there are a couple songs that really remind me of church music.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the one right after that? Don't. What is it? Don't
Shed Your
don't
Light.
shed your light. That's right.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't even read my handwriting there. That's a D. It looks
It's a
like
good job I
don't shall a
remember.
light. I'm like, that's not the right one.
No, it's a
Don't
good
shed
job I
your
remember
light.
the titles, which is
Yes.
a miracle in itself.
But those two really struck me as being like in that almost choral tradition.
Uh-huh.
And another thing you were talking a little bit before about whether or not you're the most talented drummer in the world. One of the most distinctive things to me is
That you ain't.
well, no, but the percussion parts are so simple,
Right.
And 1, 2, 3, 4. That's almost what that's about,
Well, yeah, that
Is
the
actually...
theory behind that song was we got the white church and the black church covered. Because
you
white people always
always
clap on the
start
one and the three, and that's how they do it, and that's fine. But
And the thing that makes it into something you want to dance to
Is
is
the
actually the 2 and the 4.
so-
Gotcha.
You see, so we started out, we have the one verse on the 1 and the 3, which is like marching
yeah.
by comparison. It's very regimented and marching. And then there's the middle 8, and then it switches to 2
That's
and 4.
another thing about last
which
night,
is
actually.
when I came up with that, David done the backing track and not really given it any thought, and then I came up with that because I managed to clap totally out of time to the whole of the first verse, which is kind of white church, and then to do it differently in the second verse.
Well,
that was
yeah.
the whole point of it. That's why it's why
And
it's
funny
it.
'cause-
Gotcha.
Because we have a lot of songs that people want to clap to,
And
it
it's
usually
pretty
usually
amazing.
lasts about 20 seconds is about all anyone can stand usually most of the time. And I think because they start to get self-conscious or they just
They realise that
can't get it.
it's kind of putting us off.
But
a
it's the
bit.
funny thing is because in like New York they try it and there it is, it's the 1 and the 3. But last night
they
goddamn
got
they got
it.
the 2 and the 4, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, these guys know what it is.
Yeah.
And they did it for a whole damn song.
Nice.
And,
Because they were dancing as well, so that's
Right.
actually the thing that, like, we're going back to the thing about growing up on soul music. That is actually the thing that makes you want to dance. That is why things like Motown and Stax, and that's why they were so fucking clever, because you couldn't not dance.
Kind of.
You actually couldn't not. You can't hear it and not feel like dancing, which is, is.
Not that our stuff is
Not
like
that
that
our stuff
at
is
all,
like
but-
that at all. I'm not making that comparison, but it's more that is the thing that moves you. That's the
Gotcha.
thing that makes you want to dance,
Gotcha.
as opposed to rock music, which doesn't make you want to dance.
Slam dance, it's still dancing.
It's marching. It's the difference between marching and dancing.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's talk about a couple more of your songs, though, whether they're danceable or not. Just real quick, one of my favorites from the album is actually the lead off, which is SLC,
Oh, yeah.
which is
Oh, yeah.
all about some wonderful experiences it seems that you've had in Salt Lake
Tourist
City, Utah.
information music.
Indeed. So, what is it? I mean, obviously, I've heard the song, so I know. But what is it that really, drove you to write that? What kind of experiences did you have that made you hate Salt Lake City so much?
We use Salt Lake City as a sort of idle threat. So if we have an argument, it's like, right, you're getting dropped off in Salt Lake City. It's like the worst thing that could happen to either of us.
Jokingly,
it's like it's our little sparring thing. It's like, if you keep up with that attitude, you're going to Salt Lake City.
Okay.
We use
okay.
it against each other. as a threat.
I can see how that would be a good threat. I don't know how practical
It's
it
just
is
like
because
if-
you'd have to go to Salt
Well,
Lake
the
City to
truth-
drop them
yeah,
off.
the
but
truth is we don't really know enough about Salt
We
Lake
don't-
City to say
well,
one
I
way or
don't,
the other.
for
But
sure.
in our minds, it's the sort of place that and we know a lot about it, and just from having to play there. Like, they got really weird alcohol laws. Not that other places don't, but theirs are particularly weird. Like, you can't get beer with more than 2% alcohol.
I think it's
You can-
so oppressed.
you
I
can
think
order-
I think there's like
They
a,
don't allow
you know,
doubles. Like, you can order a
You
drink.
can order 2 singles.
And they'll give
Right.
you 2 shots, but you can't have a double drink. So these are like laws written by people that don't understand drinking.
right.
You know.
And there's a lot of laws by people that don't understand anything. So, but that's part of it. It kind of it embodies all that stuff that you rather.
It's not.
It's not fun. You just can't
you
see
just
how
think
it can be
you
fun.
can't see. I really feel when we play in Salt Lake City, there's a bunch of kids who borrow this old industrial
You gotta
area
give 'em
where
credit for
you
it,
give them
actually,
credit for it because
anyone
they're
needs
in
it,
the
it's
face of
there.
all adversity. They're just trying to make something happen there, and they are making it happen. They're bringing bands there, and bands are playing, and that's really brilliant. But you can't get a drink there. You can get a
Well, they
hot
can't get a
chocolate
license
there.
to
They
do
can't
it,
get a
yeah.
license to do it. I mean, it's frowned upon, really. So these are these punk rock kids that are doing something, really putting themselves out and doing this thing for the love of it. Which I suppose I think anywhere where there's that sort of I think it is oppressive. I think there
that's
is
where the best
and that's
punk
where a
would
lot
come
of
from,
a
you
lot of
think.
really
I
good
mean-
stuff comes out of that.
Gotcha. Well, if there's anything that your music is not, it's definitely oppressive because you guys, you do exactly whatever the hell you want, and if people like it, they're gonna like it, and if they don't, then you really don't
go
care,
home.
But
right?
that's all you can hope for. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think the only thing you can really hope for if you play music is that you like it.
Yeah,
That's
actually.
the best you can hope
and if
for.
you don't, then you got hard
Yeah.
work ahead of you.
I think to encounter people who are playing music that they're not really interested in and they're doing it for money or, whatever.
Or they want to figure out what it is that people want to hear, and that's really weird.
Gotcha.
People don't
Because
know
by
what
the
they wanna hear
time
until
you
they hear
work
it.
out the element of the thing that's really popular, it will be past.
Indeed.
You know.
Well, there you go. So your music is timeless, and I think it's something that you definitely want to hear.
Oh, thank you.
But we got a show to do, or you got a show to do. I got a
Yeah.
show to watch. But I really want to thank you for joining us. It was really
Thank you
great.
for having us.
Absolutely. And how long are you guys on tour now?
Another month. from
We're
today.
out for another month.
Okay, so everybody go check out your Facebook is probably the best place to find the tour schedule, right?
Yeah.
So it's Holly Golightly and the Brokeoffs.
We do have a
and
website, but we're terrible at keeping it up to
I
date.
don't think we paid the bill or.
It's still up.
Okay.
At least it's still up.
And,
Still registered.
Sorry about my terrible cold. I hope you could hear me.
Oh, good. Well, it was terrific talking to you guys once again. The new record is All Her Fault. You can get it online or catch these guys at a show, and you can pick it up right from them.
We're coming to your town.
Absolutely, at least hopefully. So once again, this has been another edition of No Surf Music's Burning River Fireside Chats. This is your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond. Thanks again, guys, and we're going to go
Thank
listen to
you.
you rock.
Thank you.
This has been a No Surf Music Burning River Fireside Chat. This is your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond, signing off. Remember, No Surf Music is your source for the best in Americana, alt country, indie rock, and more. For original reviews and interviews, visit nosurfmusic.com.